It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing when you let your nuts hang.
I'm gonna try to get through this part of the story without tears, because every time I've talked about it before here, I've literally had to control myself from bursting out into tears. So I get a phone call from back home, and I'm told that my grandmother is in a hospital and she's not going to make it. Immediately, I get in contact with my lawyer, and I'm like, I have to go home. I get in contact with my job. I'm like, I have to go home. My grandma's not doing okay. She's in the hospital. I really want to go home. My job, they write letters, and they send letters to the prosecutors basically saying I've never done anything to be a flight risk. We approve for her to go home. They released the travel ban that they have on me because my job had to have a travel ban on me as well. And I'm talking to my lawyer. I'm giving him all this information. I have friends, I have family that wrote letters to the prosecutors that pretty much was like, please let her come home. She's really close to her grandmother. And I was so close to my grandmother. And my grandmother had been sick for a while. And I always said, it didn't matter where I was in the world or what I was doing. If anything happened to my grandmother, I would go home. And I'm talking to my lawyer, and I'm sitting him, I'm telling him about this, and he's like, okay, I'm going to see what I can do. So they start asking me about my grandmother and asking all this stuff. And they're pretty much asking prying information, asking for me to get medical documentation for my grandmother. I had to get all this stuff. And then I sent over medical documentation, and they're like, oh, this doesn't prove that this is your grandmother. Pretty much I could be lying about this being my grandmother. And I have to get the doctor to go back and write medical documentation that says that this is my grandmother. And by this time, my grandmother, she was in the hospital for a couple of days. And by the time they was asking me for all these questions, my grandmother had passed. And had they just let me go the day I requested it, I would have been there before my grandmother had passed. So I'm like, okay, now my grandmother's passed. I have to get home to the funeral. The funeral is coming up. I have to get home to the funeral. What do you need? And I'm sending over all this information because they're asking me for all this information regarding my grandmother's health. And I have to send over all this information. This is the Korean prosecutors. And my lawyer is now ignoring me. This is leading up to the day that I have to leave for my grandmother's funeral. And my lawyer is now ignoring me, and I'm constantly calling. I have to get out of here. I have to get out of here. All of my stuff is here. My dog's here. My mother's here. Everything I own is here. I'm coming back, but I need to go to my grandmother's funeral. So 2 hours before my plane was scheduled, the plane that I would have been getting on was supposed to leave. 2 hours before that, before this, I end up calling somebody that I met at the police station and asked the person that I met at the police station, can they please call the prosecutor's office and see what's going on, because my lawyer is ignoring me. He's not contacting me back. He's not telling me what's going on. So she calls over, and she calls me back and was like, they wouldn't give me any information. They said that they already gave the information to your lawyer. They already gave the information to my lawyer. My lawyer's not contacting me. So my lawyer waits till the last minute. The last minute, hours before the plane that I should be getting on is supposed to leave, to tell me that I can't go to my grandmother's funeral. Y'all, when I tell y'all the scream I scrumped, this was the first time I really just screamed, and I was just in my office and I was just screaming and I was crying, and I was I just balled up in the floor in my office, because what the fuck do you mean I can't go to my grandmother's funeral? So now at this point, I'm obviously and my lawyer during this process, he was also lying. He was like, oh, I haven't heard from the prosecutor. The prosecutor's in the hospital. We haven't heard back from him yet. And then later he's like, oh yeah, the prosecutor said that you can't go. well, how did he just, so he said that I can't go from the hospital bed. Like, what is going on? So my lawyer through this process was lying. I don't know everything that was a lie, but he was 100% lying. And me and my mother were catching it. My mom even got on the phone with him, and the lawyer got rude with my mom because my mom is like catching him in lies and calling it out. And so he gets rude and snappy with my mother. So yeah, I couldn't go home to my grandmother's funeral. Also, so after they denied me to go, I'm like, why would you ask me to get all this information about my grandmother if you were never going to approve it? Like, that's not making sense. Like, you asked me to get so much information about her health, her medical documentation, and you never even had any intention on approving it. You just wanted fucking prying information about my life and my grandmother's personal life. They initially told me that my grandma wouldn't make it beyond the night, and my last words to my grandma were on like FaceTime, and I was like, Grandma, I'm coming, like, I'm trying to get out there. And my grandma ended up making it like a couple more days, and I swear I think she was trying to wait. But she couldn't wait anymore. From here, I ended up getting my case file. So in there are all the statements that the menace made to the prosecutor. And the menace, calming down from my grandma's situation, I can't really talk about that too much in detail because I will be on this screen bawling. But in that case file, the menace told the prosecutors everything that I told to the MPs. So everything that I had already reported to the MPs, the menace told it to the prosecutors as if it was his story. So when I reported to the MPs that the menace had hacked into my computer, he is now reporting that I hacked into his computer and I hacked into his email. I reported to the MPs that the menace sent over all the information that he wanted to be told throughout this court case. He is now saying that I hacked into his computer and I did that. The menace also, when he hacked into my computer, sent emails from my email account to his, further framing me for the crimes. He pretty much sent emails of me talking to him through email after I've already broken up with him and wasn't speaking to him at all. And the emails are pretty much saying like, oh, the Koreans are dumb. They'll never believe you over me. Me saying this to the menace. They'll never believe the menace over me. And just like all this stuff of pretty much like framing me even further. So this is the extent that he went to frame me. So now when I get this court file, I am now discovering that the reason they weren't letting me leave was because of the statements that the menace made against me. Okay, so one thing I need to clarify or clear up from the last part, because I'm not sure if I really explained this well. The menace drafted and wrote emails from my account to his. So he was impersonating me from my email account and sent emails from my account to his, pretty much having a conversation with himself from my email account to his email account, and sent those as evidence. I don't know if I made that clear, but yeah. So from here, obviously my grandma situation was just completely my breaking point. And from here, I really started ramping up the praying and just really getting closer to God. I started repenting for my role in this process, for lying, for not listening to God, for not trusting my intuition. I just pretty much started repenting for everything. Before this situation, I was obviously blaming God. Like, why would God allow this to happen to me? I've never done anything to anybody and nothing to deserve something like this. And then I had to take a step back, because it wasn't God who allowed this to happen. It was me. It was my free will that allowed this to happen. God tried to intervene. My ancestors tried to intervene so many times, and I just kept pushing through the red flags. I did not listen at any point in time. And yeah, so I really had to come to terms with that and really had to take that accountability. So some of the things that I was doing during this time, I was going outside, I was getting grounded. I would take my shoes off, put my feet in the grass and kind of walk around and say prayers, pour libations, and I would do things like that. Because things were happening so fast, I really didn't have a lot of time to focus on myself. So I didn't do a cleanse at this point, but it is coming up. So also from here, one of the Menace's frat brothers kept contacting me, like just kept reaching out to me, kept trying to stay in contact with me, and was constantly like sending me messages like, hey, I just got back in from out of town. I just was in Thailand. I was just in Japan, like wherever he was, he would just send me messages and be like, oh yeah, I just came back. Like, I just wanted to see how you were doing. Now looking back at it, he was probably trying to rub it in my face because I obviously couldn't travel, but yeah. So I start asking him, like, has he seen my stuff? Where's my stuff? The Menace stole my things. Has anyone seen them? You're his frat. Where, like, you know, where are they? He's like, nah, like, I don't talk to team like that. I don't even know. He was like, I'll look around, I'll ask the frat, but I don't know. I'm like, all right. So I'm also like, do you know where he's staying? He's like, nah, like, I'm gonna hit you back. I'm gonna try to find out and I'm gonna hit you back. So he hits me back and he's like, yeah, team staying with this some bruh in Ujungbu, which is another place in Korea. And I'm like, okay. So one day I'm talking to my sponsor, because my sponsor pretty much knows everything that's going on with me right now. Like, oh my God, thank God for him. My sponsor is also frat. So my sponsor, I tell my sponsor, yeah, they said that, you know, team said he's staying with somebody in Ujungbu. And my sponsor's like, nah, we don't have no bro in Ujungbu. Ain't no bro in Ujungbu or Wijungbu, whatever it's called. And I'm like, He's like, and we looking, and I'm like, I ain't calling nobody a liar, but that's what was told to me. Mind you, my sponsor is speaking very, very highly of this frat brother. And my sponsor wants to warn this frat brother about the Menace. And during this time, I'm like, no. So I did get like video evidence of the Menace being strung out, being a C-Rack head. And I did show that to the sponsor. And the sponsor was asking me like to send him those videos so he could show them to that other frat brother. And I was like, nah. Something off about him, and I don't trust that. And so, yeah. So from here, I'm working with the police station to try to get my items back. And we're trying to come up with like a meetup location. I don't know if I talked about this a little bit before. I couldn't go back and find it, so whatever. So anyway, we were talking about a meetup location, and the police officer was like, well, we can meet up outside of the police station and you all can exchange items. And I was like, no, I don't want to meet with him. I do not want to see him. Furthermore, the Menace stole my things. So I want my things back first before I give him his. And so the police officer is now telling me that if I don't give him his things back, that I will now be charged with theft. And I was like, how can I be charged with theft when he took my items from my home right in front of the police officers? His items were already packed. And if there was anything else in the house, he had the chance to get it because he was in the house. I did not steal from him. He stole from me. Like, he had every opportunity to get his things, and then he took my stuff instead. So it's not my fault that he doesn't have clothes and stuff. He should have took them. So anyway, my mom is here and my mom and I are putting our heads together. The police are like, okay, well, you can leave his stuff. Also, the menace is trying to like control and navigate this entire situation. And so my mom and I are like, no, this ain't about to go down like that. So the menace is trying to demand what I'm going to do and how we're going to exchange things. And I was like, absolutely not. This is how it's going to go down. And if it doesn't, fine, we can just move forward with the theft charges because now you have proof that he really did steal from my house. So the police was like, okay, can you put the stuff outside of your like house, like outside? And I thought about it and then I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to put it outside of my door in my apartment complex. And that's how we'll work that one. Because if I had put it outside, then the menace could just come up and take everything and not really like give me my things back. So the officer, I put all his stuff, packed it up again and put it outside of my door. There was some extra things that were in my house that weren't initially packed that I wasn't even thinking about because they were in a disclosed room, an off room that's just like for storage. So I got that stuff up out of there, put all his stuff outside of my door, and then the police officer had to come up and give me my stuff. Now, if you know, when your house is ransacked, you don't really notice everything in those moments until like, you know. So I wrote a list to the officer about the things that I noticed at that time, and the menace only returned the things that he saw on that list. Later, I found out that there was a lot more that he had stolen, including jewelry, perfume, all types of stuff. So there was other things that he had stolen, but I didn't figure that out until later. He also kept a lot of clothes of mine, like basketball shorts, t-shirts, and stuff like that. And he is still wearing some of those clothes to this day. New girlfriend, if you see these like pink Martin shorts, those are mine, straight from my closet. But yeah, so he only returned the items that I noticed at the time that was on the list that I gave to the police. And he got his items back, and that was pretty much it. I did not have to see him. I did watch him from my doorbell camera pick up his things, and he was just completely in shock that all of his stuff was outside. And he thought that he was going to be able to see me this day, but no. And that was it. Oh, also, who came that day to help the menace get his items were the Oppish neighbors. They were there helping the menace get his things from outside of my front door. Also, I clearly never asked for my toothbrush or my skincare back. But I did find out later that he was using those items. He did have them and he was using them. My pink Philips toothbrush and my skincare. So from here, I did end up sitting down with a lady that I had met in Korea. I cannot give too much of her identity, and I won't. But I did end up sitting down with this lady I met, and she was pretty connected. I met her before. It just took me some time to sit down with her because I really, truly didn't know who I could trust in these times. So she would hit me up and be like, we need to go to dinner. We need to go to lunch, like, you know, but I never took her up on that until later. So we sat down, and, you know, I start telling her about everything that's going on, and I show her my case file. She looks over my case file and she's like, what the fuck? She's like, your lawyer is a piece of shit. And she's like, he's not doing anything. You do realize that he's going to ruin your life. So I didn't read everything from the case file because it was hard. It was all in Korean. So I just read, like, when I got it, I just read the important parts. Like, I read what the menace said, what the menace submitted, and stuff like that. But basically, the prosecutors in the case file had pretty much submitted, once they submitted the case file, they pretty much requested that I get the highest punishment for this, and that they pretty much said that I was extremely rude during my last prosecutor meeting. If you can remember, they were lying on me during my last prosecution meeting. So, of course, I was irritated, and they were pretty much just talking about how rude I was and to give me the highest punishment. So that was what they were requesting to the courts. So she's reading that and she's pretty much updating me on that. And she was telling me that no one in Korea likes my lawyer. He's not a good lawyer. He's extremely lazy and he's 100% going to ruin your life. You need a new lawyer. And so now I'm obviously like, I've been looking for a new lawyer. Like, y'all, during this time, I was looking for international lawyers. I was trying to find lawyers in Korea. It was just really hard. And I had all this stuff going on and then also had my job to keep up with at the same time. And it was just like so much stuff hit me at one time that I could not like focus, or I would like reach out to people, wouldn't get responses back. Lawyers couldn't speak English, so they didn't know what I was saying or what I was asking for. It was a lot. So she ends up telling me like, okay, I'll help you with a lawyer. I'll find the best lawyer for you. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. She's like, I don't understand why you didn't sit down with me before. And I was just like, I didn't know who to trust. Like, I just didn't know. So she ends up telling me that she met the menace. And she was like, that is the most disgusting American man I have ever met in my life. I've never seen an American man like that. She was like, what made you want to be with him? She was like, he smelled bad. Like, he smelled like he hadn't showered in days. His breath stunk. You could tell he hadn't brushed his teeth. His hair was all over the place and his clothes didn't fit. And I was like, okay, we're finally talking to someone who's not under root work. Finally. Asking me what happened because she kind of has like information on like what happened. And she was just like, I can't really tell you everything. Pretty much he made it seem like you were this really big drug addict. And yeah. And she also says, I just want you to know that the prosecutors knew he was lying. Like, I don't understand why you didn't tell the truth. Like, why didn't you say something in your meeting with the prosecutor? They knew he was lying. They knew he was framing you. But because you didn't say anything, they didn't really have anything to go off of. So she also said that the prosecutor said that I would be taking the fall for all of this since I decided not to come forth. And I was like, my lawyer is the one who told me not to say anything. And she was like, are you fucking serious? Like, she was like, he's going to ruin your life. He's literally going to ruin your life. And yeah, so we get the ball rolling on finding a new lawyer. And I end up sitting down with the lawyer for the first time. And y'all, when I tell y'all, like I said, I hadn't done a cleanse yet. So she's asking me all these questions and I'm telling y'all my memory goes blank. And she's like drilling me and she's like, you have to remember this. When you go to court, you need to know these answers. Like, you absolutely have to remember this. And the fact that you can't remember it right now is like she's going in on me. And I'm like, bro, I don't have any memories. Like, I can't remember all this stuff right now. That happens. And I found a new lawyer. I pay her out of pocket this day. Like, pay her immediately out of pocket. So from here, I obviously end up doing a cleanse because obviously this stuff and everything ladies told me is real. Not that I ever thought it wasn't, but like, it's clearly affecting me and I'm clearly seeing it very clear now. So this is the first cleanse that I did. This was over my home. So you can pause to read, screenshot, whatever you need. But yes, to anyone who wanted cleanses, here you go. I clearly blocked out who I was praying to because that's just none of anyone's business. And I definitely don't need the menace knowing who I was going to. So yeah, that's the cleanse. And from here, I end up on base one day. And this particular person, I noticed he was always kind of watching me closely, but like, I never really paid too much attention to it. I was just like, whatever, like, everyone pretty much knows my business already. Like, the menace has pretty much spread my business through God and country. So, you know, and one day he comes up to me and he's like, pretty much like, the things that are being said about you, I just don't see them being true. Like, he's like, I've been watching you, the way you move, like the way you handle yourself. What's being said about you, I don't see it. And I'm like, yeah. So he ends up like, what do you need? Like, this is really serious. This is really important. You're a Black woman in Korea. You have to win this case. You absolutely have to do what you can to win this case. This is important for all of us. Okay. And he starts pretty much telling me what I need to do. Like, I need to request like a background check from the FBI. I need to, like, he's really telling me everything that I need to do. He's been in Korea for a very long time, so he kind of knows the ropes. So he ended up jumping on board and helping me. So thank God for him too. But yeah. And also, while we were sitting down with the lawyer, we met so many times because there was just so much that I had to get out. So we met multiple times, but one of the times we were sitting down with the lawyer, I told her about my situation at the police station with the menace and how the police treated me and all this stuff. Mind you, I don't think I mentioned this before. I meant to, but I didn't. My first lawyer told me that I could sue the prosecutors and I could sue the police for what they had done to me. And when he said it, it was just something so gut-wrenching about the way he said it. Like, I just knew he was saying it in a very, like, snarky way and, like, didn't have any good intention behind it. So I brought this up to my new lawyer and she was like, what? She was like, absolutely not. You cannot sue them. You will definitely lose. They are all connected. If you sue the prosecutor, they're going to go in harder on you in court. You're going to lose. If you sue the police, they're all connected. You can't do that right now. Maybe afterwards, maybe, but right now you can't do that. So the lawyer was also still, my first lawyer was also still clearly trying to, like, set me up. So we were sitting down talking about that situation and we ended up looking up the case. Because I can't look up the case. I don't know how to speak Korean. I don't know how to write in Korean. I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know what websites to go to look for. And so we find out that the menace was obviously found guilty and I was found not guilty with all the stuff all the charges that I pressed against him and then the reverse charges back. So I was found not guilty on all of his charges that he tried to press against me and he was found guilty on mine. So there was a warrant going out for his arrest. This same frat brother that's been trying to keep in contact with me, he's talking to me, trying to act like he's helping, all this stuff, and he's like, yeah, like, let me hit him up, let me try to figure out where he is, let me be, for your safety, you should know. And I was like, honestly, I don't even care at this point. Like, I don't care. I got most of my stuff back. I don't care where he is. And he's like, no, for your safety, I'm going to hit him up. And I'm going to hit him up and, like, he not going to know I'm trying to hit him up for you or anything like that. I'm going to hit him up and I'm going to hit him up in our code. So he not going to know. So he ends up coming back to me and he's like, yeah, the menace, he got out of here. Like, one of our the frat from Ujongbu, yeah, took him to the airport and everything. Like, he's out of here. He's in Atlanta with him. All right, so from here, trial is starting, and y'all, I'm trying to keep this in chronological order. Some things may be off, okay? Like, if y'all see the book come out and stuff, and it's not in the same order, that's okay. Some stuff may be off. I have not dove so deep into, like, everything, because it's just a lot, and I don't want to put myself through that. This is already enough. So from here, we're starting trial. Here are the trial dates that I will be speaking of. So this email was sent to me August 24th, 2023, and it's please be advised of my first SOFA trial. For those of you who thought I was lying. But yeah, that's all the information for that. That OSJA word is the JAG office that shows up to court as well. That's the military attorneys. Here's my second trial held on October 27th. As you can see, they're spread out pretty far. Here's my third trial held on 8 December. So from October to 8 December, nothing. So those are the trial dates that I will be talking about from here. So in trial, in the courtroom, there are 3 judges. There's a prosecutor, and then there's me, there's my lawyer, and then there is a person from the JAG office. My first trial date, someone from the embassy actually ended up showing up. No one knows why or how or anything. I've asked around. We don't know why it was the embassy instead of the JAG office, but that's what happened. So that's kind of how court's set up. In the front, 3 judges, prosecutor, and us. So, we get to court the first day. It was literally pointless. They just asked for my name, asked for my job title. It lasted a few minutes. It was so pointless. And then my first trial, there were 2 women judges, and the prosecutor was also a woman. So my lawyer is kind of feeling at ease, and she's like, okay, this might go well for you, because they may understand because they're women. So September rolls around, and I get a phone call, and the phone call is like, bitch, he just got arrested in Chicago. And I'm like, Chicago? How he get to Chicago? I don't know, girl, but he's locked up in Chicago. So I'm like, okay. I look on the Chicago website. I don't see anything. So I call the Chicago Police Department to kind of figure out what's going on, because obviously this could be some good evidence. So I call this police department, and initially they're like, we really can't give you any information. It is a felony, but we can't give you any information. He's being transferred somewhere else today or something like that. So yeah. So I'm like, okay. I hang up with them. I call back like another day, thinking maybe somebody else will give me some extra information, because the system is still not updated in Chicago. And so I call back, and they're like, yeah, we can't give you any information, but his partner, let's just call her Sarah. They're like, his partner Sarah has all the information you need. And I'm like, Sarah? Who is Sarah? Who? Mind y'all. I left this man in May. It is now September. And I'm like, okay. How did he move to Chicago with another woman? Like, what? So, I go online and I look for Sarah, and I find Sarah. And, I wasn't completely sure if it was Sarah at that time, but, yeah, Sarah ended up posting pictures with the menace on her story, and I found them, and yeah, I found Sarah. I found Sarah. And so I just started praying for her. I was like, oh, great heavens. Oh, great heavens. Because to be honest, after everything that happened with me, I truly believed that the menace was going to get this close or try to like off his next victim. So I just started praying over her. Me and like my friends and my people, we were just kind of agreed that it probably wasn't a good idea to hit her up. She's clearly like being love bombed right now. And it may only bring them closer if I do hit them up, because she's dealing with a narcissist. So, and he's probably already like completely bashed me to her. So it's really no point. And I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna just wait till she hits me up. So the charges, once they posted on Chicago's website, they were rug related, and assault with a deadly weapon. And so I also was just like, I really like hope this got this girl out of this situation, like hopefully, but yeah, so obviously, that's now going into my case file, along with all the other slew of drug-related crimes that he has done and been caught for. So the menace had a warrant out for his arrest in Korea and somehow ended up escaping and getting out of here. I also did tell the police about the rug issues. I did end up telling them about that. I told them about when he came back in May, and it speculated that he brought stuff back. I was telling them that they need to look at CCTV footage from the airport. I also told them that he was going to another country for his sister's wedding, and that he's more than likely bringing rugs back from there as well. So I was reporting things to the police station. All right, so at this time, I'm obviously in trial. I'm consistently gathering evidence. My friends, my family, pretty much everyone I know are writing statements throughout this time, and just pretty much writing character statements. People who knew the menace are writing statements about his character as well. And that's the stuff that I'm submitting to my lawyer. through this time, I also figured out who my real friends were, and a lot of people got cut off during this time. That's all I'm going to say about that, but because they just don't deserve my time, and they don't deserve to be in this story, quite frankly. But yeah, so one day, as I'm gathering evidence and stuff, I also go to security to report CID. If you can remember, the Menace became friends with CID. That was completely conflict of interest on that CID agent's part. Even when they were building their friendship or whatever, the Menace would always try to invite that CID agent over to my home, and I would completely just come up with excuses as to why that CID agent couldn't come to my home, because I'm smart enough to know that's conflict of interest and you're not going to mess me up. So yeah. So I go to report this to security. Also, during the time where the Menace was sending me text messages and sending me emails and threatening me, I told you all before, he was threatening me with having CID on his side and telling CID. There was also a threat where he said that he was going to send this information to the Defense Counterintelligence Agency. And that's the agency where my security clearance is held. So where would he have gotten that information from? Had to be CID, right? Also, if you can remember, when I looked at the case file with the Menace completely, pretty much word for word, told the prosecutors what I had reported to the MPs. If you can remember, the MP said that they were going to share that file with CID. So it was really odd that the Menace was talking about things that happened not only in DC, but also in Korea, and was pretty much telling them everything I had already said. It could have been a coinkydink, because obviously this is all of the things the Menace was doing to me, and he was obviously pushing me into his demonic aura and showing up in my light at this time. So it could have been a coinkydink, but something around it just seemed fishy to me, and it seemed like CID was helping him. So I reported this to security. And while I'm reporting this to security is letting me know that the Menace does have friends on post. So the day that I was getting the calls from the front gate, where the Menace was up at the front gate, one of his same frat brother that I've been talking about went up to the gate to sign him on. When he realized he couldn't sign him on, he called head of security and pretty much was asking security to let the Menace on post. When security said no, he has no business on post, that frat brother said, well, there's two sides to every story. So I was like, how can someone say there's two sides to every story when they hadn't even heard my side at that point? That was in the very beginning. That happened in May, y'all. And so I asked the security person, I'm like, okay, can you tell me who this is? He's like, I'm not gonna do that, but I just wanted to let you know that your ex does have friends on this post. So I'm like, okay, thank you for that information. Thanks. So after this, I go to the Menace's frat brother, and I bring that situation up because, now I'm fishing. And that frat brother did admit to that, but he painted it in a different light. Like, that's not what he said. He said that the security person was like, there's no... he has no business being on post, and the frat brother was like, well, he never had business being on post, so what changes it now, or something like that. Yeah, so the frat brother was trying to get the Menace on post and trying to override my reports against the Menace and override the ban that the Menace has on post, and still trying to get him on. Mind y'all, I work in a building by myself. So had the Menace gotten on post and I was working in that building by myself, anything could have happened to me. Also, from this situation, I had to make reports with CID and also report all of that information that I had to report the proof that the Menace and the CID agent were hanging out, and pretty much I gave them the text message proof that the Menace was threatening me with the CID and was threatening me with the Defense Counterintelligence Agency. The CID agent that was friends with the Menace, I've never seen him since I made those reports. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know. I would have to FOIA the case file, but I don't know. Don't really care. I've never seen him since. And yeah. So November rolls around and I get a message from Sarah. Did I call her Sarah or Sasha? Sarah? I get a message from Sarah. And Sarah tells me that, you know, she introduces herself. She tells me that she and the Menace broke up, and she wanted to hear my side of the story and asked if I could give her a call. So we get on the phone, and I offload the clip on her. I let her know everything that I know, everything that I've gathered over these months. I let her know everything. And during this conversation, I find out that the Menace took my entire life. Everything. The reason why he was in Korea, he told her that he had my job, everything about my life down to where my family is from. The Menace told it to her as if it was his life. This girl was dating me the entire time. So the destiny swapping, the cloaking is real, y'all. This man really took my whole life, everything he knew about it, and told it to her. Told her stories about my life as if it was his. Told her stories about my job as if it was his. Every freaking thing, y'all. He worked on base. He had my same job. Everything. So that was really scary to hear. It wasn't scary because I knew, you know, but it was just like, wow, this man really did cloak me. Like, he really did attempt to destiny swap with me. He really, truly wanted my life that badly. That he has been lying to everyone, telling them details about my life, down to where my family is from. As if it's his own. So, yeah, that is her. The rest of that is her story to tell. That is not my story to tell. Maybe we'll tell it later. But yeah. He also told her that I stole his house. You know, this place that I live in right now. You know, that thing he was trying to do with me. Yeah. And that also he had a security clearance, and that I was just like a contractor or something out here in Korea, and that I followed him out here, obviously. But I decided to stay or something. She got to tell y'all that story. So there are a couple of things that I didn't add into the story because I just wasn't sure if I wanted them there. But you all have been asking questions, so I'm going to add a few things into the story. So when I put the Menace out of my home, after that, my mom and I went through my home top to bottom to find out whether or not the Menace had hidden things in my home that he was trying to further frame me for. So in the guest room of my home, we did find rolled up dollar bills. So the Menace was using my guest room to snort. I don't go into that guest room at the time. The only thing that was in that room was a bed. So there was really no reason to go in there, and we hadn't had guests. We had only been in Korea for 2 months and a few days at the point that I put the Menace out. And I think we had probably been in my home for a month at that point. So there was really no reason to go in there. Also, I found where he hid his rug stash that was above my mirror in my master bedroom. My mirror pops out from the wall, and he was hiding things above it. So I found that. Also in the room where I used that room for storage, it was a room at that point of things that just weren't unpacked or I don't have a place for right now. There were things hidden in that room as well. A lot of those things, though, I did find when I was packing up the Menace's items. So yeah, he had stuff hidden in like his items in that room. I'm not going to identify what I found. I don't need the Koreans coming and knocking on my door for a dang old thing. I don't need to be back on trial for nothing. Okay, but I did find additional things in my home from the Menace. Also, people keep asking about the sister. The sister, where's the sister? Have I spoken to the sister? Blah, 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 blah. Where's the sister? No. The answer ultimately is no. In the beginning, she was contacting me about certain things. And just like, I really wish you guys could work it out. Okay. When the menace was spiraling, I did contact her. When he was doing all that stuff, like sending over information to the prosecutors and going to prosecutor meetings and doing all this stuff to frame me, I did contact her. I reached out to her, and she pretty much was like, I don't know what coming to me is going to do about it. I reached out to her to call me, and she declined to call and was just like, I don't know what reaching out to me is going to do about anything. You already got authorities involved on my brother, and CCTV footage has everything. Yeah, girl. It does. It has everything against your brother, including him smuggling rugs into Korea. So I don't know what the menace was telling her. She also made mention of my mom blocking the menace on social media. That never happened. To be honest, my mom, we were watching his social media because we were looking for evidence. We were going through everything, baby. We were looking through evidence. We were looking for evidence. So that didn't happen. I'm assuming that he used that as a manipulation tactic with his sister to kind of be like, oh, like that was like my mom too. I don't know why she blocked me. It's like I lost a other mom. I'm assuming that that's what he was doing. I don't know. That's alleged information. I'm not sure if that's what he was doing, but for her to bring it up, he must have been trying to act like that was so traumatic. That conversation ended, and that's pretty much it. I was being nice throughout that conversation because I didn't want the menace to be able to use anything against me in court. So I was just being nice, and I was just like, okay, whatever. I was pretty much like, you don't have the full story. Like, you don't really know at all what happened. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay. And we have since removed each other from social media. I have not heard from her. I have not heard from her since I posted this story. And no, I have also not heard from the menace. Don't care. I don't want to. I don't care. So also in my last part 35, people were asking more questions about Sarah, the new girlfriend. One of the questions that I got asked is where my family is from. So a part of my family is Bayesian, and they're from Barbados. And so the menace was using that story of how my family got to the United States and pretty much telling her that he's Bayesian. So yeah, that's how far his lies went with her. I also got a question of what was the menace telling the new girlfriend about me. The menace did everything that he's been doing throughout this whole story. Flipped the script. He's the victim. I'm the villain. And I was framing him and all this stuff. Just pretty much flip the script. That's really what it is. But as I said, that's her story to tell. I cannot tell that story for you all, to you all. But yeah. So I'm obviously in trial. I already showed you all the trial dates at this point. And they are subpoenaing the menace to court. Obviously, he's not there. That's what the prosecutors were doing. And obviously, he's not in Korea. So once they did that and the menace did not show up to court, we gave the evidence of what he was doing in the United States, in Chicago. So obviously now we're presenting evidence that the menace is still doing the same stuff in Chicago. Also, my lawyer got rid of all the documents from my first lawyer. So she had all of that wiped out so that we could have a clean slate in this in trial, because my lawyer wasn't doing anything. Like, he should have fought for me a little bit harder when the prosecutors were requesting that I had the highest punishment. He should have disputed that. He just wasn't doing anything. He was just letting the prosecutors pretty much run amok and ruin my life. So my lawyer got rid of all of those documents. And when I say get rid of those documents, I mean that she had them removed from evidence. So the judges could not see those documents. The prosecutor could, but the judges could not. Also, during this time, if you can remember the first prosecution meeting, the menace made statements. I had a sofa up there who was pretty much an observer of the entire thing, a witness. I did go to that sofa up and I was like, hey, do you remember the menace making statements in the first prosecutor meeting? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, it's somehow not in the documents. And he's like, what? I looked at the documents. It was there. I checked to make sure that it was there. He can read Korean. I could only read the English part, but he could read Korean. So what happened to that, I don't know, but he obviously ended up making a statement and saying that, you know, I couldn't recall much of the information about the fent, and the menace did make statements about the fent. So I also had that for my court file, my case file as well. And I also had someone from my job who came to court and testified in court as well. I don't want to put everybody's information out here because, you know, I don't know who's watching, but yes, I did have someone who spoke directly to the menace come testify for me in court. And so, thank you. Thank you so much. So at this point, we're gearing up to my final court date. My final court date was to be held in January, and then sentencing was to be held in February of 2024. So we're gearing up for that. My lawyer is pretty much like, we won. Like, you can relax. We won. The prosecutors believe you. The judges believe you. We won. There is a 98% chance that we won. She couldn't give me 100%, but she was like, 98%. Like, we're going to be done with this. You're going to win the charges against the fent, and you're going to win the charges against the Adderall as well. So we were like, okay, smooth sailing from here. We got all the evidence. and I mean, when I tell y'all, my case file is so big. It's so freaking big. We were like, great. Like, this is over. Like, we're finally kind of relaxing. So my lawyer is also telling me that this final court date in January, she's like, we need to prepare. So we had to prepare really, really hard for this court date. I went to the lawyer so many times. The translator's working with me outside because this is the day where I'm being questioned. So this is like, you know, I have to have all my ducks in a row. My memory has to be top tier A1. I have to remember everything. And so we're going over like all the questions that the prosecutors may ask me, and we're going over all the questions that the lawyer's going to ask me. So we're going over everything. And my lawyer's like, this is the final court date that's happening in January of 2024. This is very important. You have to make sure you show up on time. Mind you, I never didn't show up on time, so I don't know why she said that. But she's like, you have to make sure you show up on time. You have to make sure you're there. You know, this is the one. This is the final day. So this was drilled into my head that this court date was super important. This court date was also super important because we had to get everything in by that date because the courts rotated in February or March or something like that. So in February, the judges, the prosecutors all change. So if everything isn't in by that date, then my court would start all over. My case would start all over.
Some women can start working in as 1 week.